Because I think that you are understanding appropriation the same way as expropriation. Appropriation simply used in a way the political use value of Ambedkar. If you can again argue from a post-structural point of view that I am converting Ambedkar into a thing. The argument is possible from a post-structural point of view. But what I meant is like because appropriation of Ambedkar by different political organizations by different use value of Ambedkar. Otherwise, they could have learned the whole work of Ambedkar and come with a fluidity of Ambedkar. I am using post-structuralism regarding fluidity of Ambedkar, not about a fixed category. That's why the Muslim organizations are interested in using Ambedkar in a different way. But Hindu organizations are using Ambedkar in a different way. Marxists, I didn't accept Marxists. Marxists can also use Ambedkar in different ways. And also the other Congress National. For example, if you look at the collected works of Ambedkar, it was not published by Mayawati government because before that it was published by Maharashtra Congress government. Congress also used Ambedkar in a different way. Anyway, fortunately they brought all the works of Ambedkar. That's why it is available. And before this new edition came up, the first edition was by Sharad Pawar was the chief minister. And second question, please sit up because reservation merit I don't relate. But I said that Ambedkar was facing the consequences of lack of reservation based on his merit. That is what I said. Caste was coming as an extra factor, non-merit factor, not a merit factor. Caste, the non-merit factor was coming to exploit, to discriminate you. Caste-wise position is actually non-merit factor. If you said that I am speaking for merit on the basis of caste, my argument is different. My argument is entirely opposite to judge caste on merit or merit on caste. That is the same position Ambedkar took from a modern point of view. Any individual, if you look at the liberal capitalist logic of progress, etc., the market logic, etc., your position doesn't matter. What you produce. It may be a kind of a merit supported by market. And again, that is why actually Chandrababu Prasad and others are linking him with market logic. That's why in that way also you can appropriate Ambedkar. Appropriation of Ambedkar can be done. That is fine. If not, my question, within the last 20 years, these so many interpretations of Ambedkar came. All of them are appropriating him differently. Islamophobia, I say, I don't want to put the words of Ambedkar, who spoke about religion, restriction on women and all these things, in the mouth of Sanghabhas. That is why I told that whenever Ambedkar was talking about uniform civil code, we should be cautiously making a distinction between uniform civil code. Then Ambedkar talked and entire debate of uniform civil code now entirely raised by the Hindu Sangha in favor of its own autonomy. That's what I said. Again, Islamophobia is raised. Ambedkar can also be criticized for following because many people criticize Ambedkar following Islamophobia of that particular period. That is the thing I want to know, the way in which Muslim organizations are bringing a link with Ambedkar intellectually. How the intellectual engagement takes place between Muslim organizations and Ambedkar. How? Because in the Constituent Assembly of India, actually when he was speaking about personal law, it was not the single person speaking for personal law, but many others, like Rajkumari, Amrita Kaur and some women members also joined, and they said that be very cautious on framing the articles on the freedom of religion, it will be misappropriated against women. Many people said. Then the Ambedkar took alliance with them because he also had that kind of an opinion. But then the Muslim League opposed. That's why again I said, because in this present context, I think CPM's position is logical. Because at present, state cannot impose uniform civil code. And the argument will go into feeding into the political demand of the Sangha. So let the community take the initiative of its own. Whenever the community doesn't take the initiative, then it becomes a public question, not a private question. There is also no Islamophobia because there is no Hindu position on Islam because Islam is not the only religion where women are suffering problems. This is not the only religion because religion actually is against women. I am taking a kind of a simple equation because religion basically is against women. From Bible or whichever text you take, I am telling religion basically, at least That's the reason, because in practice Ambedkar was not able to find out a religion favorable for the condition of Dalits. His argument goes against it. Hinduism, anyway, as you said, Hinduism actually was discussed in detail by Ambedkar. And after that, there was a possibility for Christianity and Muslim religion. He was so much critical of the condition of Azrals in Muslim religion. He was pointing out Azral's condition in West Bengal, in Muslim religion, caste-like structures in Muslim religion. He was fighting against it. He was raising voice against it. That's why he didn't find out any kind of religion which is truly existing in India at this time. That's why he went for an ideal version of Buddhism. He was actually reinventing religion. I can clarify the point in a different way. Ambedkar's position on religion. Every modernizing individual of that India, other than leftist socialist groups, were finding out a kind of modernization of tradition or modernization of identities, social identities. Muslim intellectuals went for that. And Hindu intellectuals of Muhasaba and others, they also went for that. And actually Ambedkar didn't have any kind of a Christian religion if you took into consideration. Christian religion actually stayed because of the Protestant bias of British rule. Many Catholic religion, in the case of Kerala I am saying, many Catholic religion underwent a series of changes in their tradition, customs, etc. during the 19th, 20th, during the late 18th century onwards. So these types of changes already happened. And Ambedkar didn't find out any of these existing modernizing religion as suitable for the purpose of the religion. That's why he was trying to invent Buddhism in a new version. And also you see, because Ambedkar didn't make any kind of really existing Buddhism as favorable for Dalits. I think he may not be very much. That I ask sometimes the question, because if you look at the social hierarchy or a kind of economic hierarchy of Tibet, until then you may put that word in my mouth and you can say that I am supporting Russian invasion of Tibet. I am not supporting. But I am telling, because still the Chinese invasion of Tibet, still the Chinese came and occupied Tibet. Actually the landless peasants didn't get any land. What is the reason? Because monastery was actually appropriating the wealth of others. So what I said, because these things we cannot see in a, in a clear way, because so many complications are involved in it. So the position, if a person is asking me a position that I am taking support of Chinese communism, I don't support. If I support Chinese communism, but I said a historical fact. Why, in spite of Buddhism, it was failed in Tibet to bring about social economic equality, or a kind, at least in terms of distribution of land. That question might have disturbed Ambedkar. That's why he didn't support any kind of actually existing Buddhism. He wanted to invent a new religion. In that way also, if you look at Ambedkar, he was also in the same pattern of modernizing religion for some kind of different other purposes. Muslim religion also tried. And also he was a long-term friend of Jinnah in several matters. And also once Periyar, Jinnah and Ambedkar had a discussion of forming a kind of, which the people now are treating about, or a Kanshiram thought few decades back, of that Dalit Bahujan identity. That didn't materialize then. And also he advised Jinnah, don't go for separation from India. That is another argument which is not part of this partition, but somewhere else actually happened. He advised Jinnah, don't take the leadership of Muslims alone on the basis of Muslim nation state demand. But instead of that, you can bring up a kind of anti-Brahmanical, that's what it is written like. Non-Brahman castes, Dalits and Muslims can join together. And then the question comes, because if you look at the class structure of Muslim community of India, actually landlords, many landlords were there in Muslim community. What would be their position on Ambedkar's suggestion for nationalization of land? How the Muslim landlords, and also if you look again we must read history, that I said, because if we are reading history, we can see a kind of a controversial issue that actually crumbled. The interim government of India, interim government formed by Muslim League and Congress. That government failed on a budget introduced by Liaquat Ali Khan, the first finance minister of that, the only finance minister of that interim government. He actually introduced a clause, according to the socialist vision of Nehru and distribution of property, tax the industrialists heavily. Heavy taxation on industrialization, actually what happened, industry happened, and also the Congress pro-Hindu leaders actually sensed a problem in that, because heavy tax on industrial outfits in that undivided India would cause more harm to the Hindu industrialists. because Muslim industry is in the industry actually Muslims had a very low presence. That is why it went into a kind of a conflict, and later Liaquat Ali Khan and others resigned, etc. But you can interpret it in a different way, in a post-structuralist language, because Liaquat Ali Khan, you can find out a communal color, you can find out a class issue, because Congress was facing the economic issue, because its own funding sources are cut down if they are taxed. A kind of a negative opinion among industrialists, actually. Industrialists and the Congress connection is well known, a well-researched topic. That's why if that budget is passed, actually, Congress backbone of financial resources will be destroyed. Congress did it like. And also you can see another way. It means everyone can see it in a different way, because actually the Congress leaders were supporting Hindu. Because there is nothing harm if the budget is passed in that way, with the heavy taxation on industry. Nothing harmful for the Muslim industrialists, because Muslim industrialists were narrow at that point of view. So actually, that's what I said. The same Liaquat Ali Khan was not able to strongly advocate a kind of a land reform or something on that. Agriculture, raising agriculture tax or something. That is why I think that Congress was predominantly led by landlord and industrialist combination of power. And this class dimension, if we are throwing out in the dustbin and we are speaking about post-structuralist imagination of Congress and Muslim League, what we are getting out? Based on personal biographies of these leaders, linking all these things with science and leaving all these context and other things, and we are placing it somewhere else and reading it out. What does it signify? I think that the post-structuralist reading has certain merits, but the way in which, again I will use the term, the appropriate is actually self-defeating something. For example, I am telling, because if you want to look at it, and also many people say that class history doesn't have any kind of significance in it. It should qualify two things. Classes are absent. Classes are present. Class struggle is absent. Class struggle is presented in a different way. Still now we say the class theory is outdated. What is the qualification for us to argue that class theory is outdated? I am again asking the question because somebody said that this is also another dominant argument that we are familiar in teaching Indian politics. So this is also another argument in India. Marxism failed. What is the reason? Marxism failed in India. That's the conclusion. What is the reason? Because of caste politics. And the counter question should be asked whether caste politics won. Caste politics also failed. What is the reason? Simply here, on the one hand, actually the post-structuralist social scientists are a problem now, because they are actually denying certain types of binaries and creating and clinging on certain types of binaries. Dalit identity or Muslim identity or any sort of identity politics, if you look at the dialogue and the way in which actually the written conversation goes on, actually this is all against Marxism. I am asking because Marxism is not at all relevant in India. Why all the arguments are going against it? Why all the arguments are going against it? Why? That's a different way in which actually my point. Modern scientific way I am saying, not postmodern, not scientific. Modern scientific way I say, because these identities are cutting across each other. Then again, the appropriation is important, because political use value is very important. Because for example, if you look at the Marxist political parties in India and Dalit organizations, more or less they are eating into each other by claiming support of the same view. But as far as Muslim politics in India is concerned, actually, they are an anticipated one for the Marxist political party. That's why the friction, if you look at as a political science teacher, I want to say, if you look at the friction between these groups, you see, because the first one will be much stronger than the second one. Because any loss or gain for the other one is similarly producing. That's why this is also an important issue. If you look at, that's why what I suggest is actually a kind of a dialogue is necessary, or not solving it, but highlighting it. A dialogue is necessary, even not for solving it, highlighting it. But anyway, there is another problem that I found. Recently the protesting and moral policing and all these things came, and several types of arguments came and against and support, and somebody is sitting on the fence. They asked only a simple question, yes or no. Whether kissing is permissible, or will you agree with kissing in public by somebody else consenting? It's an yes or no question. That is why I find that the movement or a kind of a protest was more effective, because there is no vacillating question. There is no vacillating question. That is, they placed simply a yes or no question. Regarding that yes or no question, it is very difficult for us not to take any side. It happens in certain cases. And also if you look at that issue, because that is what I said, because if you look at Ambedkar, actually Ambedkar was talking against religiously sanctioned dress code. Anyway, he took the example of Muslim community in that particular article. But in some other context, you have elaborated it and explained it in brought examples from many other religions. What this is, he said that segregation of sex in public. Segregation of sex in public by using a kind of religious argument as a modern, not a postmodern. Moderns can use it as a body politics and all. That's why my point is that Ambedkar is my confident way of interpreting it as a modern. And also the way in which actually post-structuralists are using Ambedkar, Anubhava Rao's caste question is a caste question is so in that book actually she uses him, but anyway not the way, because she is also not truly the symbolic postmodern type of analysis. But in a semi-modern type of analysis he also brings Ambedkar. Anyway, this is the way, because Ambedkar I think is valuable for India for pushing ahead the modern, not for countering it. If we are using it, we will be in a very uncertain position to use Ambedkar.
Not necessarily it is the case. There are subscribe and ideologically in certain ideas of and Marxism. The theory is not opposed in the domain of politics as well as in the domain of intellect. But if the problem comes with the practice of the problem is with the praxis. And when it comes in the Indian context, there is a serious embedment of the caste culture in Indian Marxism. And the problem lies with it. So, that thing you are not making it clear. The problem with Dalit intelligentsia, that the distortion of Marxian theory or political theory. And current scenario might why there is a shift in the left politics. The much more they are advancing towards the electoral gain and trying to adjust with their domain of intellectual. So it's the politics is just the pragmatic, the looking for a pragmatic benefit and the political outcome. Another problem is that you are looking into the identity of caste by the reading of postmodern and post-socialism. But for Ambedkar, it was not that. For Ambedkar, the question of untouchability was the serious question. Ambedkar looked into the caste through very, very fundamental and different dimensions. And I don't think at that time when Ambedkar was dealing with the caste, there was advent of the postmodernist thought. But one should distinguish what is the postmodern reading of identity and what is the Ambedkar experiential reading or experiential reality about the question of untouchability and the question of identity. That one, there is a problem I clarify. And third problem I have when it comes to the question of religion. Why does the Ambedkar fail the need of religion? It's not only the ideal notion of religion, the desire, the ideality of religion. There was much more necessity for Ambedkar to realize the ideals in the practical life. To realize the ideals in the practical life of untouchable. Those who have been segregated apart. So the question of religion is very serious and very one has to live in the very seriously that matter is, and Ambedkar didn't take time to clarify all those things. I am not satisfied with when you say that Dalit, the Dalit politics is arguing always against.
Kind of a problem in appearance and a critical thing. For example, in appearance, it seems to be so, not for entirely, because in reality,
Clarifies all these things.
entirely in essence, in reality, what I said, the binary that we use doesn't mean that all of us use, but the dominant use is a kind of Marxism versus Leninism, Marxism versus Leninism. This is a kind of a false juxtaposition that I argue, and I said that there are different Ambedkarism and different Marxisms. Each of them are related in different ways. We will have to find out the complexity of these relations, then we can say. For example, I brought the reservation question. If you look at caste reservation was opposed by Marxists, I don't say that all the political parties of the so-called Marxists followed the same. There was a difference between undivided CPA, that example I said, and CPI, CPM, and Naxalite groups. All of them have different positions on different aspects of reservation. That's why what I said, we have to take into consideration diversity of Dalit philosophy, diversity of Marxist philosophy in India, rather than projecting it as a kind of a debate between Marxism and Dalit. But your argument is actually, I also support it. The entirety of it, we should have to find it, rather than going by a kind of dominant note. If a particular person is Marxist, there is a tendency to say that he is against Dalit philosophy. If a particular person is Dalit, the other side is not a problem of the one side. Other side will say that he will be against. That's what I said. We want to clarify, looking into the differences between each group. Second point may be related to Marxism and caste. Marxism and caste is a long kind of a debate. Where I think sometimes some of us or many of us have arrived at the conclusion that Marxists in India didn't understand caste. That's what I said, because Marxism failed in India because it didn't understand caste. If you look at the long history of this kind of a class-caste debate, that was actually, I think, yes, EPW, Economic and Political Weekly, from 1980s onwards, 70s and onwards, took up the issue in different ways, participated by different scholars from different schools, etc. One article I can say, a kind of a final or a final Marxist understanding of caste question in India written by D.T. We may not understand, we may not have heard of that. But what I said, a rereading of D.T. and also in that article, actually he is examining the objectives and ideas of 3-4 caste organizations related intellectuals. For example, Terry and Ambedkar. He gives more credit to Goulet's movement. No, its title is actually Caste, Class and Property Relation. The article is titled like Caste, Class, Property Relation. You can download it from EPW and anybody can read. And that article, if you can see, a kind of a refined Marxist position on caste in India. Anyway, personally, if somebody of you read and say that this point is wrong, because I send it to some of my students. I hope. And also, if they read, they can do. But after that, I think this article is a fine conclusion on a kind of Marxist position on caste. Caste, class, property related by D.T. It's a kind of a final justifiable position. That is, nobody is quoting D.T. Renaldi's position when people are telling that Marxists failed to understand caste. Marxist, and also if you look at another Marxist historian of India, D.D. Koshyap, the position of his is clear. Caste is class in origin. If you quote Ambedkar again, the position is more or less the same. Caste is an enclosed class. Quoting from indirectly, not referring indirectly by Weberian tradition, he says the same. There is a difference. Caste is class in origin. That is a Marxist position. Caste is class in origin. And also one of my students once argued with me in my class, so vehemently, he should be justified in that way, that you are telling that caste is class. I said that I am not telling class is class, but caste is class in origin. And then I posed a counter question. What do you feel? If I am right, what is your counter explanation? Caste is divinely sanctioned, quoting Manu? No. Then what is the origin of caste? There is a lot of, because when people are, when Indians are doing research about caste, there are some problems. But any Western scholars are doing research, they will be a little bit of free. That is why I think that regarding economic reservation and caste reservation in India, social reservation in India, actually the best article ever produced was by a foreigner because Mark Gallen. His own positions do not come as a representative of reserved and non-reserved. That is the best article on reservation in India. His position is very justified. Finally, he is supporting social reservation based on certain kind of... That kind of arguments are not coming up from Indians because some Indians are talking about it. Listeners are placing him against and for. Mark Gallen is not eligible for reservation, or he is not eligible, he is not coming under the beneficiary groups. But within the Indian context, what happens whenever talk on reservation comes, people are easily classified into those who are for, against. Such an academic work, I think, that come from the student community who are doing research, who are doing MA, etc., from our research.